What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Nuts and Bolts Sports. Here, Raj, Jordan, and Henry. As always, Joe had to go back to his throne room. He can't join us today, unfortunately, but it was good having him on. What was it, Monday? So thanks to him for joining us on that episode. But we're here to talk about Game 3 for the most part of this episode. Going to be Game 3 of that Nuggets Lakers series. Nuggets obviously coming back and getting the win, 114-106 over the Lakers. Big. A must win, basically. Instead of going down 3-0, they go down 2-1 in this series. Still a long way to go in this series. Still a very, very long way to go. But it showed that Game 2 was not a fluke for Denver. Anthony Davis hitting that last second shot, but Denver was obviously up before that shot went in. And it did show that Denver is here to fight. You know, this series is literally one Anthony Davis buzzer beater away from being Denver up 2-1, and people speculating again about whether LeBron is washed or whatever it may be. That all said, you know, there are certainly frustrations on both sides yesterday, and I'll toss it to you, Jordan, first here. I saved you for last time, but I'm going to give it to you first this time. What you got on your Lakers? What are you seeing, what you liking, what you not liking? Because I know you got a lot more on the negative side than the positive side.
Yeah. Well, I think that the Lakers, obviously we talked about it on Monday, how, they kind of got lucky, and this definitely could have been a 1-1 series if not for the Anthony Davis buzzer beater. I expected the Lakers to come out and play with more urgency and, you want to get to a hot start and you want to get after that 3-0 lead. And they did the complete opposite. They were lethargic on both ends of the floor. They were sloppy with the ball once again, had, 17, 18 turnovers again, whatever it was. On defense, they showed no interest in trying to even contain Murray or any of the shooters. I can't count. I lost track at some point of how many wide open corner threes they were getting. And to Denver's credit, they were making them, which they hadn't really been the first two games. But you can't leave teams open, especially like that in the playoffs. The only time where they really got it together was in that little stretch there at the beginning of the fourth where they went out of desperation and went into that 2-3 zone. And just Denver didn't see it coming at all and kind of folded there with the 6 straight turnovers. But even then, Denver settled down and the Lakers just couldn't make any plays late. They turned the ball over on a 3-on-1 where it went through Rondo's hands. Kuzma missed a wide open 3. Caldwell Pope missed a wide open 3. So they just didn't make the plays down the stretch. And for most of the game, they were pretty sloppy. So there's definitely, this is a series. This was not, Denver is not a team that you can take lightly, and the Lakers have a lot of work to do if they want to go up 3-1. Meanwhile, Denver has all the momentum in the world, right? They mentally are pretty high right now. They have said so many times that they thought it should have been 1-1, and I think Jamal Murray said last night we know it should be probably a 2-1 series. So in Denver's minds, they're right there with the Lakers. They're not fighting an uphill battle. I think they think that they're right on even keel. Which is dangerous because now Denver has a lot of confidence. Murray was playing very well. Jokic is playing well. Jeremy Grant finally had the breakout game that I think Denver was looking for, which is not good for the Lakers either. So all it takes is another one of his games, or God forbid anybody else for Denver gets going, and we could be looking at some serious trouble after Thursday.
Yeah, Henry, do you agree with what Jordan's saying in terms of this maybe being, at least from the Nuggets' perception, this being sort of an even series? And, what did you see? What stood out to you last game that you might want to sort of touch on?
I think the main thing that stood out to me was all of the Lakers' big men. How much rebounds did they have altogether?
Four combined.
Rebounds altogether combined. Anthony Davis had 2, JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard each had 1. I mean, I feel like if that happens again, then obviously this series is going to be evened up and, like Jordan said, even keeled, because you can't have that type of performance from your big men, especially Anthony Davis. Someone who is supposed to out rebound and have that out performance in terms of athleticism against Jokic. So for Jokic to have the upper hand last game, obviously we always talk about how Jokic is savvy in himself and everything, but that's really when we talk about now. Raj makes me think about it. After this game, I was like, is Anthony Davis a superstar? He got me questioning it. So, but not just that, but because of his performance. I mean, you can't afford that. He just came off a game winner, and for him to, even though he had 27 points and 2 rebounds, down low, they can't do that. Jeremy Grant was playing phenomenal. Jamal Murray was, it's continuing to build up his resume throughout these playoffs and, the tough shots he makes. I want to talk about that 1-2-2 zone they ran because it was able to close that 20-point gap. And I truly do believe that I feel like the NBA, when it comes to, offensive superstars, they're not ready for zones because they're used to man matchups and used to players switching on each other. But the zone, that it goes away from switching. You just stay on your side and try to, guard it as best as possible. And it seemed like it worked, but to a certain extent. Like, now I want to know is, Frank Vogel going to use that tactic again? I don't know, Jordan. What do you think on that tactic? Do you think it's something to keep using moving forward if they fall in the same situation?
No, Raj and I were actually talking about before the show. I thought it was just a total desperation move by Vogel and whoever else suggested it for the Lakers. And, obviously it worked in their favor to get them back in the game almost. But it's something that, I think because the Lakers played next to little, if probably 0% zone in the regular season. So I don't think Denver had even discussed the possibility of it happening. And that's why I think they were so caught off guard. So if Lakers tried again, I think Denver's going to have at least a couple of plays ready. Plus, they just have, I think, with Jokic, being kind of the focal point, you could put him in the high post or the foul line area and just let him make the best decision. He's probably going to do it. So definitely not something they would do. And I also want to, kind of compliment your point with the Anthony Davis thing. It blows my mind how he could play so efficiently in some games and dominate on both ends. And he plays 43 minutes last night and 2 rebounds. I mean, I don't like to look at, counting stats like that because I think rebounds are kind of, it depends on the matchups on the floor. But you're Anthony Davis. You're 6'11". You're one of the 3 most athletic guys on the floor. You're certainly more athletic than, the guy that you're guarding most of the time in Jokic. And to grab 2 rebounds in a game it's just unacceptable. It can't happen. It should never happen. Like the odds of that happening should be impossible. So on him, that's terrible on him. That shows a lack of effort and a lack of desire to get on the boards, both on the offensive and defensive glass. And same for the other bigs. I know Dwight and JaVale didn't play a ton of minutes, but at the same time, they're both 7-footers. I'm sick of both of them. JaVale comes in there. And it's the same story every game, right? He comes in. He generally loses the tip, even though he's going against Jokic, who's pretty unathletic. And then
Jokic had the violation yesterday.
Yeah, he's sneaking away with it, but and then he commits dumb fouls. He commits a dumb foul on Murray. He commits, I think it was Jokic went downhill. Jokic went downhill on him in transition, and McGee couldn't get in front of him. And it's 2 dumb fouls, and it's the same story. It's like, okay, we'll see you in the second quarter, or probably not at all, because Vogel finally decides to sit him. It's just a waste of space, really. And then they bring in Dwight Howard, and Raj and I had a little bit more of a conversation list on Twitter last night. Vogel said that he started him in the second half because he had a lot of energy, and he liked that energy that he brought. And we kind of highlighted the key. There's a difference between energy, and Raj used the word effectiveness. And I think it's a great point because anybody can go out there and be energetic at any level, high school, college, NBA. You can go out there and run around and be super jumpy and
flail your arms. This is Dwight Howard out there.
But if you're going to go out there and not be productive and not benefit your team, it's funny. Joe's not here now. We were talking about cursing the other day on the stream or whatever. To me, Dwight Howard's a jackass. Like he just and he plays like a jackass. He got in Jokic's head a little bit in game 1. And instead of just playing smart, solid, fundamental defense and setting good screens on offense, he's like the kid that tries to push the limits to see how much he can get away with. Except now, the refs aren't going to buy it. Jokic is getting in his head pretty much on the opposite end. And, Howard comes in the game, commits dumb fouls, getting technicals. The only guys who should ever get technicals for anybody in the playoffs should be your star players, so LeBron, AD, or Vogel if he's defending one of those guys, or the rest of the team. Dwight Howard, those guys, you don't say a word to the refs. I'm sick of it, and both teams are kind of doing it too. There's a lot of flopping, a lot of whining at the refs.
I can agree on that.
And the Lakers are 100% as guilty as any team in the league. They do a lot of it, and I'm pretty sick of it. They just need to get out there and play. They whine after every call, and I'm sick of it. We've kind of – this is like my tangent here, I guess, on that. We finally hit that.
That's a great point because we all saw that elbow that Jamal Murray had on LeBron James.
Not a flagrant.
It wasn't a flagrant. And what does that do? It slows down the game. It kind of and that's been happening a lot lately, I don't want this to be a progressive thing where teams are just going to rely on this solely in order to have the upper hand, because it's not even from a fan standpoint. I think it's the integrity of the game itself to just keep it going and play through. I'll be honest, last night after the game, I don't know why I was on YouTube, and then I went through a whole Kobe montage. I got emotional, but then I saw his highlights, and I was like, damn, this guy never really complained. He just played through it all, through all the physical contact. And that's something that I don't respect about LeBron. And I'm not a LeBron hater. I recognize his greatness, but he does that way too much. But it's two-sided. The Nuggets are in fault of that. The Lakers are in fault of that. We're talking about Dwight Howard too, are you kind of putting him on the same level as Patrick Beverley? Do you think so?
He's not as effective even as Patrick Beverley.
Yeah.
That's saying something, because I don't think Patrick Beverley's all that effective.
Exactly. So when you guys said the difference between energy and effectiveness, someone that's just waving their hands,
he's a child. Dwight Howard is a child. No matter whatever, he's like 32, 33.
He's like, what did I do?
He's the same age. He whines at the refs. He commits the dumbest fouls.
This is that same Dwight Howard that like was Charlotte, right? When he got traded away, the locker room started cheering. Like this feels like that Dwight Howard.
Yeah.
And in the like the numbers that he's putting up this season are in this postseason. Sorry, in the series, I am fucking sick and tired of Chris Webber and Reggie Miller going out there and saying energy, energy, energy. Energy doesn't mean anything if you're not impacting the game. It doesn't mean anything. All he's doing is going out there. He's putting up the same numbers that he's putting up in the regular season. So he's having no more impact now than he was. People are just making a big deal about it because he's played out of the Houston series because of the size thing. Makes no difference in this series. And yeah, now he's going out there and getting completely outplayed by Jokic. He's getting clowned by Jokic out there. Jokic is taking advantage of him. And that's
Jokic just figured it out. And Dwight, again, like you said, I think that's the perfect analogy. Like he's the kid that just like he gets away with something once. He didn't get caught, and so he thinks he can keep doing it. And Jokic knows what he's doing. The refs know what Dwight's trying to do, so they're not going to fall for it. And for like the flagrant foul thing with Murray, and I think there was another one they might have reviewed later in the game. Like I don't, as frustrated as I get as the refs in the moment for calling it, I know that they're only going off of what they're told from the top. So it's the league that needs to fix it. I know that they're told before the game they have to look at certain things, or else they get in trouble. So they're just doing their job. So the league needs to like crunch down on, because like this is such a fast moving game. You know, if a guy's really trying to throw an elbow or hit somebody in the head on a drive to the basket, you will know. Like I feel like common sense should just take over. But because of pretty much the Ron Artest melee back in, and that really shifted everything. Everyone became very sensitive after that. No one wanted anything to escalate to start to a hard foul to go to fighting in the stands, etc. So it's been that way for years, but they really need to scale back on it, because it does. It slows down the game. It takes teams out of rhythm. It penalizes a guy like Murray, who if he would have gotten if he would have actually committed something later in the game, he would have been gone. So I don't want to see teams put in a position where they have to play any differently or they shouldn't have to play scared, I guess really is the point. They should be able to play all out in the conference finals. But the bottom line is the Lakers, didn't really give a shit on either end yesterday, except for a 5 or 6 minute stretch. If they want to win Thursday, they have to come out. They have to come out. They didn't come in game one. They have to come out fast. They have to come out, playing well, execute on offense. Their offense has been garbage. They're not hitting shots, which is obviously huge. The bench was. I love Alex Caruso. He was terrible last night.
He was absolutely terrible. Yeah.
And I usually fall on the stake for him, but he was terrible. Rondo had his assist numbers, but he didn't shoot the ball well, and kind of we got like the old Rondo where the ball was just stopping and there was a lot of dribbling. And that's when the Lakers offense is bad. When the ball is just stopping, whether it's Rondo, LeBron, even AD in the post, it can't. The ball has to move. Like how basketball works. Like the ball. Look at Denver. That's why they were so effective. They had Murray on the pick and roll, and Murray is, I think, a talented passer. Probably could average better assist numbers if he wanted to. There's no world though where he should have 12 assists and he looked like an all NBA point guard. Look at Chris Paul running out there. He was finding everybody, and that should not happen if you're Los Angeles. I'm hoping that they make that adjustment going into game 4, but who knows at this point. It's all effort. Effort is the key to this.
You guys were talking about the reffing, so I'm going to start there, and I've got a lot of thoughts that I want to sort of rattle off. Right. I try to be like one of the few people I feel like that doesn't complain about reffing, because I understand that's just as hard of a job, if not harder, than what the players are doing out there. The reffing is ridiculously hard. So I might have conversations with you guys in our DMs or whatever. I never publicly bash the refs. I try not to, at least. Reffing in the fourth quarter was absolutely atrocious. The Lakers threw Denver off with that 1-2-2 defense, but on the 80 call, on that foul, I replayed that play 6 times, and there was absolutely no contact. There was no contact. You could have made the argument down low, but even then, there was no contact. There was no contact. Then for them to go back the other way, Anthony Davis smacks Morris to the ground from his arm on the 3-point attempt, and then for them to not call it, if you're going to call it one way, you call it both ways. That goes for the flagrant as well. They called the flagrant on LeBron. They didn't call it on Murray later in the game. They didn't call it. Like, you've got to call it both ways. That is absolutely atrocious. And on every single one of those Rondo tip-offs from Murray where LeBron got the fast break dunk, Rondo was armbarring Murray and not letting him get the ball. There were fouls on every single one of those plays. That should not have cut from a 20-point game to a 3-point game. They maybe could have cut it down to 10 because the zone was effective. But that was not as strong of a defensive effort as a lot of people are making it, because it was just absolutely terrible reffing. And the reffing, we've talked about it here. The reffing has not been good in the bubble, and I don't quite understand what it is. It could just be the fact that we're hearing a lot more of the slapping because there's no crowd noise in there. But still, you've got to call it equal both ways. And this was the first time where I blatantly saw it being a one-way called game in that fourth quarter in particular. So that was frustrating, first off. On the 80 point, I see people in the comments saying he's a superstar and whatever. No, he's not. He's simply not, and he proved that last night. A buzzer beater, first off, does not make you a superstar.
It's your fault, Rajani Davis.
Yeah, burn it on the screen. Burn it on the screen. This is the same thing that he did in New Orleans. You can go out there and drop 27, 30 points a game, but if you're not winning games, it doesn't make an impact. You're not impacting the game at all. If you're scoring that many points and your team's not winning, you're clearly not impacting the game. Brent Henry, you brought up the rebounding as well. 2 rebounds. Your team got rebounded by 20 rebounds in that game. And your big man is not, one of your starting big men is not getting more than 2 rebounds. Both those rebounds came in the fourth quarter too. So up until the first 3 quarters, he had
rebounded.
0. He got 0 rebounds. He impacted the game in 0 way. Rudy Gay goes out there and gets 20, 25 points a night. That doesn't even make him an all-star. Come on, guys. Come on. Be logical about this. Anthony Davis is a talented player, and his ceiling is up here. He could become a superstar. He is not there now because he does not impact the game in any way. Sticking on LeBron, I'm never hard on LeBron. LeBron was bad last night. You have a triple-double and you're bad. That's saying something because he was not locked in. He was not focused. 6 turnovers, unaggressive.
The turnovers were killing them.
It was terrible. LeBron was bad last night. I don't care if he had triple-double on paper. I don't care if he moved up to 26 triple-doubles in the playoffs or whatever. I don't care. He was straight up bad last night. The Lakers are bad. The Lakers are straight up bad. And the Nuggets, they had good stretches, but they were not good through the entire game. They were not good for all 48 minutes. That was clear there in the fourth quarter.
Right.
But what it did start with was Jokic coming out there in that first quarter and setting the sort of tone for that Denver. This is where energy pays off because Denver goes out there and plays aggressive behind Jokic's lead. He plays well. He scores most of his 22 points. I think like 18 of them came in the first quarter or whatever. He sets the tone for his defense. He had that mentality. That completely changes shifts the focus of the game because he's putting in points when guys like Murray are struggling. Then you have the bench guys coming in. And if for people that didn't watch a lot of Denver this season, the reason that Denver was as good as they were was not because Jokic and Murray were good, but Murray missed some time. Even Jokic missed some time. They were good because they're deep. And this was a point that I made on the first episode when we previewed this series. It's all going to come down to the role players and the bench players. And in this particular game, the role players for Denver showed up and they showed us what they gave us in the regular season. Jeremy Grant was good in the regular season. He was good here. Monte Morris kept them alive in the second quarter. He's like the only reason that they were still in that game because he had like 12 points in the second quarter alone.
He was great, yeah. He's been great for them for as long as he's been there.
And this was all coming when Murray was struggling because Murray didn't really pick it up until the fourth quarter, if we're being completely honest. So that's why Denver was good in the regular season because they had such a deep roster where they could go into their deep guys like Monte Morris, who's 8th, 9th on the bench. They could put him in, they could sub him in, and he could make those points up for Murray when Murray's not playing well. And then this is why Murray became a superstar, or maybe not even a superstar, but at least an all-star here in these playoffs because he's not struggling, but he's not afraid of the big moment, and he shows up when it matters. He showed up in the fourth quarter when his team was about to go down. The Lakers almost came back, and then Murray came alive and dropped 7 to 10 points there late in that fourth quarter. He changed the impact of the game. This was the Denver team that we saw a lot of the regular season. This is what Denver can do, and this series, is a lot closer than a lot of people are making it out to be. The Lakers need more than just Rondo and KCP to be their sort of guys off the bench and role players that are making an impact. And for those two guys to be the only guys that are making an impact and their impact is, that minor, that's saying something for the Lakers.
That's not a formula for success, really.
Yeah, it's really not. And so I think that people are, you've got to understand that this Denver team, they're not going to back down. You guys have both recognized it. I want other people to recognize it because this Lakers team, they have the structure to be able to be great, but they haven't shown us that they can be great because it does fall. A lot of that stress does fall on AD's shoulders. And if LeBron's not locked in like he wasn't last night, this Lakers team's not going to win. I think that Denver has momentum, like Jordan said. I think Game 4 will be interesting. What do you want, Jordan? Do you want Denver to go down 3-1, or do you want them to tie it up 2-2?
No. I made the joke before the series, like I'd rather it be like 2-2 and then whatever. But at the same time, the way the series is gone with LA going up 2-0, having it be 2-2 would mean that Denver has. I mean, they already have. I think if the needle's normally in the middle, it's already this way towards Denver. If it's 2-2, it's all the way over here for Denver, and that would be the Lakers would be on their heels, and that they'd be in trouble. Your Stephen A. Smith rant, like type of thing with the whole reffing, the AD. I was waiting for you to be like, AD is a dear friend of mine. But 2 rebounds in the fourth quarter of a playoff game? Are you serious? But no,
it's like
he's got to be better.
I really don't. I hate to be hard on players like this because I know what they're doing. I know what they're going up against. I know the pressure that's on them. But I'm just sick and tired of people coming at me and being like, "You're wrong saying AD is not a superstar," because he's not. He showed us last night that he's not. A buzzer beater does not make you a super speeder. Does not make you a superstar, especially when you're a team in the second quarter when Denver comes back from down, and then you have buzzer beater to win that game when you're down 2, not make you a superstar. And last night, AD, you could drop 27 points all you want. Like I said, Rudy Gay can go out there and drop 27 points. That does not make him a superstar. That does not even make him an all-star.
Wait, Jordan, I want to ask you real quick. Now, do you think? Hey, you know what, Raj? You've made so many great points about Anthony Davis that I didn't believe it at first, right? I was like, he's a bona fide superstar, But after last night's game, it kind of justifies all your points because when he did show up in the big moment in the buzzer beater, but like you said in our group chat, Mo Williams hit buzzer beaters before. Is he a superstar? Was he
Four?
ever a
He had
superstar?
4 in his career. Come on. No.
Yeah, 4. So Anthony Davis has 2, and that doesn't necessarily hitting 1 in the playoffs. Yes, it's huge. Don't get me wrong, but those type of performances where you are the Lakers' sole big man. Why? Because and JaVale McGee are playing like straight garbage, and I'll agree with Jordan on that. Like, who else in the Lakers' big man is gonna help AD? Nobody, right? So I feel like Game 3. Do you guys feel like it exposed the Lakers? I used to think they were a deep team. I was like, oh, they're one of the deepest teams. But now when you really do think about it, I'm like, KCP has been playing better in the bubble, so he's like one of the most reliable role players. But then aside from that, Danny Green is on and off. Rondo, playoff Rondo comes and then he comes and goes. Kyle Kuzma is kind of streaky sometimes, but then aside from that, I think this is where they miss Avery Bradley the most. Avery Bradley is such an essential player for the Lakers. Not only for what he's been able to do for that franchise, but any team. When he was on the Celtics too, like he was such a key defensive player, and that's what the Lakers really need.
He's a rock. He gives it to you on both ends. You know what you're going to get out of him, even if it's only like 10 points a night. You know you're still going to get those 10 points out of him every single night, and he's going to give that defensive effort that the Lakers are lacking.
He'd be fantastic for 15 minutes a game on Murray. I think it'd be a huge difference maker.
Yeah, in that fourth quarter, especially, he could have slowed down Murray at the end of that game. He definitely would have made an impact.
So out of all the teams in the playoffs right now, or that are still currently in, would you guys say that Denver is the deepest team?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Denver was the deepest team in the regular season, too. I have zero doubts about that.
It's them in Miami. Yeah, I think that's the discussion. Because honestly, Boston's probably like last just because you don't know like if Gordon, like Hayward's back now, so like that could make a difference. But at the same time, like if he's not 100% or if he gets hurt again, like that really limits their depth. The Lakers, I think the biggest thing with the Lakers too with the depth is I think they were hot in the second round, right? Morris came in, started hitting shots, KCP. Everyone really contributed in the second round, which made their depth look really good. But the problem is that wasn't really something that I think was going to be sustainable, and it's not. I just looked at the numbers. They're 19 for 62 from 3 in the last 2 games, and there's a reason why we're so much closer than Game 1 was. So you're not going to win a game, let alone a series, shooting 30-32% from 3. It's just not feasible. So they got to do better there. The turnovers, like even though the numbers themselves, the turnovers have been very similar, like total wise between Denver and LA. I think the timing of the Lakers turnovers, Denver's 6 in a row was like ridiculous. That's like an anomaly that won't happen again. But like even during that, Lakers have a chance. They're down 3. They have a fast break 3-on-1, and the ball goes right through Rondo's hands. And it's just like those are momentum killers.
The difference yesterday, especially, is that LA is usually such a good transition team, and this was something that you and I, Jordan, talked about at the beginning of the series. Also, is the fact that LA needs to take advantage of the transition, because if they do, then they will tear apart this Denver team. They've not been taking advantage in transition, and also Denver is scoring off the turnovers. Yeah, the numbers are similar in terms of turnovers, but Denver's capitalizing on them, and the Lakers aren't, and that's a big sort of thing. That is where your role players come in. You can't rely on LeBron to run every single fast break on his own. Rondo's got to be good on the fast. Caruso has to be good on the fast break. Kuzma has to be good on the fast break. Danny Green has to be good on the fast break. They have not been.
And they can. So to me, like running the fast break, especially if you get a Denver turnover, if you get a long miss off of like a corner 3 where you have some sort of numbers advantage, it doesn't take like a ton of skill to run it. You just got to put in the effort like anything else. You got to fill the lanes the right way, space the floor, and just take advantage of the numbers. Make the right decision if you're Rondo, Caruso, any guard with the ball. If you get in the corner, hit your shot. If not, get to the rim. If you don't have like Jokic or Plumlee back on defense, go to the rim. Who's going to stop you? Like there's a good chance you're going to make the layup or get fouled. And at least worst case scenario, you're putting that pressure. You're tiring Denver out. We made the joke about it, but like, why? What reason can you give me that LA shouldn't run Jokic back and forth until he's too tired? That would be A1 for part of my strategy.
And after what Lakers did last night, they were the ones that were huffing and puffing and gassing.
They were gassed.
LeBron, we never see LeBron gas. And after running that zone defense and trying to push that 20-point comeback, he was
it was a lot.
They had to put so much.
They pumped in because it was Game 3. It should have been in Denver. I think they took away some air. They changed the altitude there. But no, they were, because I think LeBron played usually LeBron plays a little bit of the fourth and then sits and then comes back in. I don't think he did that. I think they kept him in for that zone. So yeah, they were tired, and I think I think they were tired physically and definitely mentally. But I'm hoping. I mean, I've been very negative on them this entire show, but I'm hoping that they go in, they watch their film, they see the mistakes they've made, and it's really they got to come out with a better attitude. I know it sounds like very generic to say like you got to have a positive mindset. Like they just got to come out there and be mentally strong for 48 minutes. They have to try and play a full 48 minutes. You can't don't let Denver go on big runs. Keep Murray and Jokic contained, and don't let Jeremy Grant's a nice player. I like Jeremy Grant. I would love if he was on the Lakers. He's not 26 points good. That can't happen. And kudos to Jeremy Grant for taking advantage of what the Lakers were giving him. But the Lakers, you can't give guys like, and you can't do it next game. If you're going to shut down Jeremy Grant, you can't let Gary Harris get going, or don't let Monty Morris get going again. You let these guys get going, and that's what you're alluding to with them, talking about Denver's depth. I mean, you let those guys get going, a couple of bench guys, that could cause some serious problems, because then you're putting LA in a position where they have to counter and they have to have their bench play at such a high level. And I don't know if LA's bench can do that, but
yeah.
We'll see.
Well, I mean, Grant, you also have to give him credit on the defensive end, because, LeBron did have his 30 points, but Grant was going minute to minute with LeBron, and he was giving him just as good of a matchup as he's gotten in the playoffs. He was so.
Oh yeah, he's their best defender.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And he, Torrey Craig was kind of the reliable sort of one option last year, and that's why they couldn't get over teams like a LeBron-led team or a Kawhi-led team, because Torrey Craig's a good defender, but he can't go matchup against LeBron minute for minute. Jeremy Grant was a massive, massive pickup for them in this offseason, especially with Will Barton missing time now. Jeremy Grant has really, really filled that role better than Will Barton would have played LeBron on defense, especially. The offense, it did look good yesterday, and I'm hoping he can continue it throughout the series. Yeah, he's not going to give you 26 a night, but if he can give you double digits, 12 to 15 points a night,
he looked confident. Like his shots, it didn't look like they were hesitating at all. Like with Porter Jr. even looked, he had three in LeBron's face, and he looked confident. So you can't let those guys. Confidence is like such a game changer out there on the court. When you shoot the ball with confidence, when you play defense with confidence, it changes everything. And Denver is starting to look very confident, which the Lakers should be concerned about.
Well, I feel like that's what I'm sorry. That's what Denver has the upper hand, because the Lakers came into the playoffs kind of complacent. They knew they were the number one seed. So Denver had 2 rounds coming back from 3-1. So for them to do that, obviously, when you finish those series in advance, you're going to gain a lot of confidence. And that has a lot to do. Paul George lost confidence in his shot. That's why we saw him hit the side of the backboard. Jamal Murray, we saw him hit that shot over Anthony Davis yesterday, or in game 3. And it was deep from 3. And I'm like, that's not even luck. That's just a combination of skill and confidence right there. Jamal Murray just really boasting it so much. But Jordan, if I were you, especially as a Laker fan, I don't think I would be too worried also, because that's the thing. The Lakers are the number one team in the West for a reason. I mean, not just what they did in the regular season. I'll be honest, I completely forgot about the Lakers-Rockets series. It feels like that didn't even happen. Like, it was so significant to them.
It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago too. And then in the first round, we all thought Damian Lillard, the Trailblazers, they could be blah blah blah.
That's a good point. And the one silver lining that I took away, and it was a cheap silver lining, was that, so how like in round 1, Portland Dame hit a 3 late to give the Lakers, or give Portland the lead, and he did his little shimmy thing, whatever. And then Russ did the same thing in game 1. He was talking trash after something.
Jamal Murray did it yesterday too.
Jamal Murray did a little wiggle, and if you don't think that LeBron saw that and put a little mental note down, you might. Jamal Murray, like, if he's in the lane at all, I think LeBron's going to go for the dunk on him next game. Yeah. But I'm hoping that everything that happened, you're looking for. You mentioned like LeBron, his numbers were good aesthetically, but overall the play wasn't good. You're hoping that this is, you have more experience with LeBron in the playoffs than I do. So I'm hoping that you get that classic LeBron bounce back game. He makes the adjustments on his end and kind of runs things, and they come out and play better. But I feel like this isn't like the East where, you're playing like the Hawks or, an injured Celtics team like they had a couple of times.
Paul Millsap first win over LeBron in the postseason.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're not playing against that team where like the Hawks didn't have like a true superstar. Boston had Isaiah Thomas and Kyrie, and those guys hurt, whatever. So you're in a situation here where like Denver legit has 2. They have a superstar in Jokic and a rising star in Murray. So this isn't a team that you can just come out and expect to walk over. So they have some adjustments they have to make, and Denver's going to make theirs. I'm sure Denver was sitting there saying this, like you said, they didn't play a full 48 minutes. They did some things wrong. So, it's going to be interesting. It's cliche to say that every game is must win, but like, I feel like game 4 is must win for the Lakers. You want to be up 3-1, as funny as the jokes will be. I'd rather be up 3-1 and have the games to play with than be 2-2 and be the Lakers would be completely on their heels at that point.
Yeah, this is still a long series, and I'm going to stay firm on that. Game 1 would have been a lot closer if Jokic, Millsap, and Murray don't sit half of the first half, basically. They sat, each of them sat 6 to 7 minutes in that second quarter. That's huge for Denver's lineup changes, and that drastically impacts the game because it was a tight game before those fouls started to show up. So I still contest that this is a lot tighter series than anybody is, giving Denver credit for. But I'm also, I'm not going out there and yapping because Denver won one game. That's one win. There's still got to be more adjustments because, like I said, they were not there for all 48 minutes yesterday. There still needs to be a lot of moves on Denver's side to make sure that they're more locked in for Game 4 and come out with the same intensity that the Lakers are going to come out with. You don't get 2 LeBron dud games in the playoffs. You simply don't. Yeah, I can speak from experience. You do not get 2 LeBron dud games in the playoffs. But the question is everybody else going to show up for the Lakers? Anthony Davis can't go out there and score 30 points if he's not going to impact the game. ISO ball next to the basket, 15 feet out from the basket, that's not a superstar. You could be talented at scoring that. That does not make you a superstar because you're not impacting the game. That's all I really have there. Any other closing thoughts, Henry? I don't know if you have anything else.
I mean, isn't it kind of crazy how we're calling LeBron's last game a dud when he had a 30-point triple-double? It just goes to show, like, damn, he's that good. Yeah. That's why we know he's that good. A 30-point triple-double for anybody, even if it's not as efficient, will be like, wow, look at these numbers, Then it translates to a win, but that's just – I truly do believe, and I think that if LeBron plays with the same aggressiveness, the Lakers made him too passive, obviously. He did lead the league in assists, but if he plays like the LeBron of old in terms of he's capable of taking over games, if he does that again, I don't think the Nuggets have a chance of stopping him. But obviously he's not going to play that because he's not in that system for him to do so. Now he has Anthony Davis to drop 30, 40 points as well, but LeBron, wind it back 2 years, when you're with Cleveland and you're literally all alone. If he's able to do that, I think anybody, including my Celtics, are done if they ever come across each other.
Yeah, the series it's still a long ways to go, and LeBron is
taking years off my life.
It's still a very one Denver win here. This series could still be over in 5. There is still a lot of work that needs to be done for both teams, honestly. And this could be done in 5. This could go up to 7. I really don't know at this point, and I really don't. I think it's a toss up as to who wins this thing right now from the sort of sample size that we have. But
agreed.
We'll have more, I guess, after tomorrow. So we'll just have to wait and see. Billy Donovan got hired as the Chicago Bulls head coach. Zach LaVine broadcasting COD while it happens, and he's like, "Oh damn, we got Billy Donovan!" So casually dropping that while he's live streaming COD. I think this is an interesting move for Chicago, especially because they were interviewing so many assistants at this point, like when Wes Unseld Jr. being one of the sort of top candidates from Denver's bench up for that role. So for Billy Donovan to go there, I think it's an interesting move for Chicago because it didn't really look like the landscape they were going with. But also, I think it's a pretty smart move for Billy Donovan. I don't necessarily know if Chicago's going to win a whole lot of games next year, but I think for Billy Donovan's career, it is the right sort of next step because he's coached the superstars in somebody like a Russell Westbrook. Now he's got to go and take what he learned from that situation and see if he can implement it in Chicago to make those young guys like Lauri Markkanen, Zach LaVine, and Kobe White better. So I think it's sort of a good move for him. It's a smart move for him as a coach, and it will prove to us whether or not Billy Donovan is actually a good coach, sort of being in the running for Coach of the Year this year. Henry, I'll toss it to you first. What are you thinking about this hire and this move by Chicago?
I think I honestly think this is a great move by Chicago. If there's any coach that they were looking for in order to, to continue this rebuild in a progressive stance, it will be Billy Donovan because with his 5 seasons with Oklahoma City, he has a 60% winning percentage with the team. Obviously, he did have 2 superstars in Russell Westbrook and the Paul George of old, but that just goes to show, what type of coach he is as well. He came from Florida. He was able to coach these young guns. That's what Zach LaVine, Kobe White is. Zach LaVine. I thought he was an all-star snub. Kobe White, he's a second team all-rookie now. And the Bulls, they came off a 22-win regular season this season. But that's something that I feel like Billy Donovan's presence is going to have because Zach LaVine did not have the best relationship with Jim Boylan. If anything, I think he really did hate him. Not hate him, but he strongly disliked his decision-making, especially down the stretch when there's many instances where Zach LaVine would see Billy Donovan or Jim Boylan call a timeout when they were down 10-15 with like 20 seconds to go. He would question it. He would be so pissed. And you know what? He has all the right to because he didn't think that his decision-making had validations on what Jim Boylan was doing. Obviously, the coach players chemistry in that Bulls locker room was nowhere near where they wanted it to be, obviously. So they got rid of him. And I think Billy Donovan is a player that dealt with a Russell Westbrook who can get fiery, on his own. Paul George, he's up and down in terms of how connected he is with the team and everything. So he's used to that. Now that he has a group of guys super young. The average age on the Bulls is actually 22 years old. So they're one of the youngest teams in the league. Laurie Marketing, Kobe White, Wendell Carter Jr., Zach LaVine. And Zach LaVine is progressively still getting better and better, regardless of that that ACL tear back in 2017. So do I think the Bulls are going to make the playoffs next season? Probably not. It's going to take some time. But I think that Billy Donovan showed up at the right time. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, Donovan obviously had a lot of success this year. Helping take the Thunder team to the playoffs when no one thought they would. It's a tough situation because he's not coming into there's a lot of interesting pieces. I don't know if they all fit. Like we talked about, LaVine is an improving scorer, not a good. They play no defense, right? LaVine's a good scorer. He can get up and down, score 30 with anybody. Can't guard anybody. Kobe White has apparently not met a shot he didn't like in the NBA. He shot the ball every time I watched him play last year, but he does have a lot of upside on that end. An okay defender. Laurie Markkinen, kind of he's kind of like the C version of Porzingis in terms of the stretch European big, but he's not a good defender. So defense is obviously going to be their biggest problem. We'll see who they take in the draft, and I forget what pick they have. I know it's very high though. So they'll be looking at, the Anthony Edwards, maybe LaMelo, somebody to kind of complement LaVine. But they do have some intriguing pieces. You never know what deals can be made. And he has shown, that he can win at the collegiate level and have some success at the NBA level. And like you said, Boylan it didn't work, right? It was just the wrong coaching style with the wrong team. And I tend to shy away from blaming coaches because at the end of the day, I feel like the players got to go out and play. But that was just a situation where it really didn't work. Those guys hated him. He was making them practice for 3 hours a day. And they were about to boycott. And the Bulls ownership, let's be honest, the Bulls front office isn't great. Is Paxton's still there, right?
Yeah,
they haven't been good for a long time because they low key have the C version of the Knicks front office. We just don't talk about it as much because we have teams like the Knicks who are just incompetent. But their front office has quietly made a lot of bad decisions over the last couple of years. So it'll come down to who they can pick up in free agency and how quickly Donovan can get those guys to buy into a system.
Does this Chicago team maybe need to make a move for a better player than LaVine? I guess considering LaVine is probably their best player right now.
He is.
Maybe Markkanen could make the jump and be their best offensive player. You make a good point about the defense. But does it, do they need to make a move and maybe get one of these all-stars to actually be a contender, I guess?
But the thing is who wants to play in Chicago, I think that's a big question. It's not Chicago is a big market team, especially with their history and everything like that. But we have to focus on it now. I don't think Bradley Beal. Do you think so? That's a player who can finally get out.
Can't guard anybody.
Yeah, which is true. They have a lot of offense and they don't have any defense. So obviously, right now the Bulls are in a market where a lot of all-stars or superstars are looking towards that's where I want to make the jump. So it has to be with their core that they have right now. I think Wendell Carter Jr. is a good big, a solid big. Obviously, has a lot of improvement to do. Zach LaVine, we saw what he did. We saw what he did in that game against the Hornets. When he made that
game winner.
The game winner when they were down by 5 with 10 seconds to go in this whole crazy sequence. So he built up the confidence to do that. So again, the confidence factor, I think that's the thing. Zach LaVine, now that he's out of the Wolves, now that he's out of Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns' shadow, he knows he's the man. And you know what? I feel bad for the Wolves because their confidence got completely destroyed by Jimmy Butler when they were in practice and everything. That's a whole nother story. But Zach LaVine is out of that situation. He knows he's the man in Chicago and what he can be, moving forward, because an ACL tear is supposed to ruin your career, supposed to be career ending, but he's one of the examples that just kept getting better and better and better from that. Kobe White to make second team all rookie, playing for the Bulls. I think that he has a good trajectory as well. Now adding Billy Donovan to that mix, he has 26 years of coaching experience in collegiate sports and the NBA. So he knows how to mold players for the better. It wasn't as successful as it was in Oklahoma City, but I truly do believe I would give it probably 3 years for the Bulls to make true noise in the East again.
I guess last question, Jordan, I'll specifically toss this to you because I think it's sort of targeted in your direction. Now that Donovan's off the market, is D'Antoni the only option the Sixers have left?
That's what I was hearing that today, that the Sixers are trying to recruit him.
Loud was the word that Woj used.
And that not only if would they be looking at D'Antoni to come in there, but if he came in, they would possibly be looking to maybe offer. The word was like active in the trade market, right? So we don't know if that means like Tobias Harris and Horford range, or if it means like Simmons or Embiid. Spoiler, it should be Embiid. But they would probably try to, how D'Antoni works. You have to like cater to a system in a way, kind of like you have to cater to a guy like Harden. So it would be interesting to see what happens. If back to Chicago real quick, if I was them, to me personally, I'm not very high on Lauri Markkanen. Like he's a nice like stretch 4 guy. He can light it up and like he's fun. But like I don't think he offers a lot of value passing or on defense. So if you could dangle him and like whatever pick they have, I think it's somewhere like 3 through 5. So if they could dangle that and Markkanen, see what they can get. It doesn't have to be necessarily like a superstar because you're not going to get that. But if you can get a borderline all-star or just someone better on defense, they could definitely use. I think their wing. Do they still have Otto Porter for another year?
I think so. Yeah.
And he's not bad.
They're paying him a lot of money though, right?
Yeah, he's like 28. Well, they're paying him whatever Washington gave him.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of work I keep talking about defense with them, but like that's what it is. Like when your best player is Zach LaVine and he's not a good defender, like you have to build a defense around him. Like I'm okay with LaVine not being a great defender if you build the right pieces around him. So I would look to see what they can get, for guys like that. Kobe White obviously has some, I don't know if it's like star potential is the word, but he definitely has some high level potential. He's just got to kind of get his head on straight and figure out a shot selection.
Sure.
But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see with that, and we'll see with Mike D'Antoni. I mean, there's not a ton of other people out there. Nate McMillan's still floating around, but the Sixers are going to want somebody that's established that's going to come in there because they're not. This isn't some rebuilding thing for them. This is their quote unquote process that they've worked so hard to lose and then try to get back up to win. So we'll see what happens. If it means that they break up Embiid and Simmons and like I finally get to tell all my Philly friends that I was right, all for it. Hire D'Antoni now because and not only A does that mean that I'd be right and they trade somebody, but B it also guarantees Philly wouldn't win a title because Mike D'Antoni would not win a title. So that's what we call a win-win in my book.
Fun fact, the first NBA player that I ever asked a question to at a media day was Wizards Media Day 2017, Otto Porter. Little nervous, like college student me was asking Otto Porter questions, and that was probably the most nervous I've been. That was the most nervous I've been in my entire life, so I'll just throw that out there.
Otto Porter spikes fear in the heart of Rock.
Young Otto Porter, too, was like his second year, too, so I think he was younger than me at that point, for being completely honest. Let's close things out just quickly. Let's talk about tonight's game. We talked about it quite a bit last time, so we don't need to spend too much time on it. So I'll just ask you both for keys to tonight's game and who you think is going to win. I'll just start by saying I think Boston is going to continue the momentum, and the key for them to win this or come back here is whether or not Gordon Hayward can show up and maybe elevate even a step further than he was in that first game back from the injury. And if Jaylen Brown is there and is as consistent as he has been recently, he's been scoring much better. He's been much better in the past few games. I know a couple of them came in losses, but he's been good, especially in the sort of back half of the Toronto series into this Miami series. So those are the two players that I've got my eye on. Jordan, let's toss it to you first.
I'll just do it for Miami because I think Miami's going to win the game. I think we're going to have another extremely close game. I can't see a blowout in any game in this series. The biggest key for them is going to be Dragic. I think we've seen here when he is very good, they are almost unbeatable. He did struggle in game 3. He was 2 of 10 from the field. So he's got to play well. And then defensively, they just have to do their job they don't have to stop like Tatum, Brown and Hayward or Smart or Kemba. Like they just have to stop like 1 or 2 of those guys. So just limit, keep Tatum under 25 points or keep Brown under 20 or something like that. Like just take a couple guys out of the game a little bit, and they have a good chance of winning. But I think it'll be close. I'd say Miami. I think they've had a couple of days off. So I think the offense is going to be flowing. So I think I'm going to go 113-108 Miami. And those are my keys to the game.
All right, what's our Celtics guy got here?
If they win by that exact score, I'm gonna Venmo you $20 because that was very specific. But
I'll send it to you.
See, I don't know.
Is that a Kemba jersey by any chance?
Hell no.
It's Larry Bird.
It is. Oh yeah, no, it's Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce.
Even though I hate him as an analyst, my favorite. I do. Oh my god, so bad. But favorite player growing up. Not gonna lie.
That
But
jersey just reminded me I have to go to the bathroom mid-session.
Ah,
Where's my wheelchair?
I get so much shit for being a Paul Pierce fan from everybody, especially living in LA. I get shunned so much, but die hard loyal and everything. Do I think the Celtics are going to win today? Hopefully, the Miami is such a good team. I don't expect Goran Dragic to have another disappointing game. He's been dropping over 25 points throughout all these rounds, and obviously, Jimmy Butler, to the Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, all those guys, they can have bounce back performances because of their chemistry. They trust each other. They don't. I mean, as much as I hated to see it, the Celtics, when Marcus Smart was yelling at everybody in the locker room, it kind of gives advantage to Miami because they see they're getting into their heads. I don't think that happens to Miami, that happens on their side. I don't see Jimmy Butler, I don't see Bam Adebayo, really necessarily yelling at each other, whenever a bad player, they lose a game or anything, even though they're 10-2 in these playoffs and they have barely really lost, but they're holding each other accountable and they just want to move on and improve from there. That's what Eric Spoelstra is really honing this team to do. And now I truly do believe too that Gordon Hayward is ready to make the jump. I'm not saying a huge jump, but I'm talking about he played 30 minutes last game. I thought his minutes restrictions was going to be around the 20-25 minute mark, but to play 30 games or to play 30 minutes in your first game back and to have 5-7 points, I can see him scoring like 12 points now, probably 30-32 minutes because
3 full days off too.
Yeah, and now he's had his recovery. His sore ankle. It is a worry, but it's a sore ankle. It doesn't last for an extended period amount of time. So, do I think the Celtics are going to win? Like I said, hopefully, because Miami Heat are essentially the best team in the bubble. They are 10-2. They are probably next to the Nuggets. They're probably the deepest roster too. They can go like 8-10 men deep, and that's something that Celtics couldn't do it when Gordon Hayward was out because, like I keep saying, Brad Wanamaker, Grant Williams, Robert Williams, Enes Kanter, those are that's it. That's pretty much our bench right there because we don't use Carson Edwards, we don't use Taco Fall. So, and I think those are such key pieces that Brad Stevens could probably use. I saw what Carson Edwards did in Purdue. Taco Fall is one of the biggest players in the league, and that's something that I
would pay to see Taco play in these playoffs.
Especially not in garbage time, because the only time he was in was to guard Kyle Lowry on the inbounds pass that he threw to OG. And
he couldn't even do that right.
He couldn't, and I don't know if that messed up his chances. Brad Stevens was like, all right, fuck him. Like, he was completely useless out there. But in terms of adjustments too, I feel like Brad Stevens finally kind of figured out Eric Spoelstra's system, especially now plugging in Gordon Hayward, sharing those minutes with Marcus Smart. And if Marcus Smart keeps playing the way he is now, with the chance that he's gotten to really blossom in these playoffs with the absence of Gordon Hayward, I think this series can be tied up. And moving forward, it's probably going to go to 7 games. Like I said, these playoffs have been truly unpredictable. I'm excited to see what happens. I'll be honest, every time I wear this jersey, we lose, so I'm going to take it off right after this.
Too late. Curse is already on.
So you just did it for the show. This was today's prop.
I was like, Jordan brings props. I haven't worn this in a while, so I'm going to take it off, though. It's bad luck.
So Jordan's prop next time is going to be the wheelchair so he can get carted out of the line. We talked about Henry's favorite team. We talked about Jordan's favorite team. I want to close things out with a little bit of Cavs talk. Cavs returned to their own bubble today. They're in their own bubble today in Cleveland, just hanging out at a hotel that's like 3 blocks away from whatever their stadium is called now, Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, I think is what it's called now. Apparently we got hulked out Colin Sexton. Cleveland championship contenders next year, anybody? Hulked out Colin
Sexton. I
Sexton.
feel so bad if they're all forced to being a bubble in Cleveland.
I know,
that
right?
sounds like top 5 most miserable things that I'd want to do.
It's rough. It's rough. Apparently the report from Chris Fedor was like Colin Sexton looked like Donovan Mitchell was what somebody said. No, don't do it. Don't do it. I guess I just jinxed myself for the Nuggets winning the next game too with that. That'll bring us to a close for. Oh, you got something, Henry?
I was gonna say I'm trying to remember a time where the Cavs were good without LeBron.
Oh
besides
God,
the Mark Price days.
I think it was.
That's it. Yeah.
I think
That's
it was when it was back in the '90s when I was just
And they
probably
still got
just born.
shitted on by Michael Jordan. So
That'll bring us to a close for this episode. Thanks everybody for joining us. You can find our social medias there in the description. You can also find Nuts and Bolts Sports on our website as well as on all social media platforms. Go Nuggets.